guys, it's Gretchen and welcome back to my channel. It is that time of the month again where I answer your body mod questions. If you are new to these videos of mine, basically what I do is I say, hey, if you have any body mod questions, let me know and I will respond to them in a video. So if you would like to have your body mod question answered in April's body mod Q&A, you can either leave them in the comments below or you can go ahead and follow me on Instagram, where I will put on an Insta story the little question box that says, hey, now's the time to ask your questions. Those are the only two areas that I look at questions. So if you ask a question on another video, I most likely will not see it. I only look at the previous month's Q&A video, as well as Instagram. So let's go ahead and get started. Jennifer asks, could you get a Daith Duff and a Rook piercing in the same ear? Trying to figure out how to style my ears and I want both. I just didn't know if it would be possible. So I have my Rook in this one and I have my Daith Duff in this one. And just based on proximity, I personally wouldn't, but depending on the kind of jewelry that you have in either piercing, as well as the anatomy of your ears, I feel like you might be able to, but it really is going to depend on your anatomy as well as the type of jewelry that you choose for either piercing. Amber asks, should you cover up piercings in tanning beds? That is an excellent question. As you can probably tell, I don't frequent tanning beds, so I've never encountered this before. I would imagine you should. Can anyone who does go to tanning beds weigh in on this? I would imagine that would probably be in your best interest to either cover them up or take them out. I'm probably not the best person to ask that because, like, do I look like I've seen the sun? But that's what I'm thinking. Anyone who frequents a tanning bed or tanning in general, weigh in, because I'm not even sure. Gianna asks, what size are your ears currently stretched to? So my ears are currently 1/2 inch, which is 12 millimeters. Sometimes it's labeled as 13 millimeters. If you go to like any of the body jewelry sites online, you'll see 1/2 inch is labeled as 12 and 13 millimeters. 12 is the most common sizing, but that is what they currently are, is 1/2 inch. Kezzy asks, have you ever used chamomile tea on a piercing bump? I have not, but I've heard of people who have. I personally, for piercing bumps, I tend to stick with just the saline solution. Occasionally I will use tea tree oil. As always, if you're going to use tea tree oil, use it appropriately. But I've never used any of these different concoctions that people talk about, like that aspirin paste. I've never messed with that before. I've never messed with like the tea bag compress before. I usually just stick with a saline solution, either rinse, wash, or even just taking like a cotton round and placing it on a piercing bump for a few minutes. If anyone has actually used this method before, leave your experience in the comments below. I personally don't recommend those different variants, like especially the aspirin paste. I don't recommend, but some people have experienced. Good luck with it. Shannon asks, whose advice to take? Your piercer or people online who seem more knowledgeable? My piercer told me I could change my navel jewelry after 6 weeks and clean with Q-tips. People on YouTube say wait 6 months to change the jewelry and not let a Q-tip anywhere near the piercing. So I have difficulty with this because I've seen people respond to comments before saying, oh, my piercer said I could do da-da-da, when that is very much what you should not do. Like, I've had multiple people say, oh yeah, my piercer told me to turn the jewelry, or my piercer told me to use hydrogen peroxide. And I'm sitting there going like, where the hell have you been going? So I think it really depends. To break down your comment a little bit, your piercer says that you can change the jewelry after 6 weeks. What I think your piercer meant is that you can downsize your jewelry after 6 weeks, which means you need to go back to the piercer and have them downsize your jewelry, because usually with piercings, they're gonna give you a really long piece of jewelry. That's for any piercing. Because the navel is a little bit fleshier, it's gonna heal faster than cartilage. So after 6 weeks, you should be good to downsize it. This does not mean that after 6 weeks you can change it all the time. This is just to make it more comfortable for you and less chance of causing injury by having a longer piece. So that's what I'm thinking your piercer meant. Now, as for the Q-tip thing, I personally use Q-tips. I've never had a problem. To me, Q-tips are kind of like any other means to clean your piercing. So like tea tree oil. As long as you know how to use it correctly, I say it's okay. But I'm also a piercing enthusiast. I am not a piercing professional. The main problem that people have with Q-tips are the little fibers, like the little hairs that can sometimes get stuck on a piercing and cause further irritation. But again, it's just being kind of aware that that's a possibility. So to answer your question, it really depends. Like, my gut instinct is to say all of us piercing enthusiasts online, take what we say with a grain of salt. We are just going based off of our experiences and our research. Piercers are professionals. They usually know what they're talking about. Irene asks, piercings except for septum that can be hidden from school. So I actually did an entire video just about this. You can go check it out up here. 5 piercings that can be easily hidden. I tried to steer away from the like more notable ones like nipples, navel, septum. Those are really easy to hide. I tried to come up with ones that were a little less obvious to respond to. Pretty much ear piercings, especially if you have longer hair. A lot of people don't know that I have ear piercings when my hair is down. Kind of hard to see. Morgan asks, my nostril got pierced with a corkscrew and it keeps falling out of my nose. But because of the 3rd lockdown in the UK, I can't go and get it switched to a labrae or even call the shop to ask for recommendations of a labrae to go and buy. Do you have any suggestions for what I could do in the meantime? Because every time it comes out, it gets really irritated when I put it back in. First of all, that's very strange that you're having issues with corkscrew jewelry falling out. I always had the opposite where I couldn't get it out. As for it falling out, is there anything kind of like snagging on it to pull it out, or is it just like you're going about your day and all of a sudden it just goes pop? Like, I feel like something is potentially making it to force it out. For me, corkscrews I absolutely hate with every fiber of my being. I just do not like them. I guess it's baffling to me to hear that they're just kind of popping out. I don't really have good advice. I'm hoping, since you commented this 3 weeks ago, that maybe you had better success since then, because I really don't have any advice for that. Unless you have other jewelry at your home that you could swap it out to, like labraes or anything like that. I always make sure that I have excess of everything just in case a situation comes up that requires me to change it out and I can't get anywhere. But either way, I'm really sorry you're struggling with corkscrews. Haley asks, what are your thoughts on healing a nostril and septum piercing together? I personally wouldn't. I got a lot of comments on last month's Body Mod Q&A when I responded to someone about getting both nostrils done at the same time. I said I personally wouldn't. A lot of people are like, if you get them done at the same time, you can make sure that they're even on both sides. You could also do that if you did one and then the other later. It's not like you're double whammy and piercing them at the same time. I personally would not, because that's a lot of aftercare in one tiny area. I would personally go with the septum first, because that one I found easiest to heal as well as quickest to heal, because it's not cartilage you're piercing through. So my advice is don't get them done at the same time and go with septum first. Aloe asks, in August 2020, I got my cartilage pierced. How do I know when it's healed? When it no longer hurts, when it no longer gets crusty every so often, when you can change it out easily. I mean, there are a lot of signs for healed cartilage. That being said, that's been what, 6-7 months? You should be good as long as you've kept up with your aftercare. But if you notice that it still hurts every so often, or if there's any kind of redness or a bump to it, or even a little bit of heat to it, it just doesn't feel right. It's more of a gut thing. If you feel like there might be something still going on, I wouldn't mess with it. Beatrice asks, how easy is it to hide a septum piercing, and can you do it right after having it pierced? Absolutely. So depending on the kind of jewelry you have. Mine is a segment ring, so you can notice it. I can't flip it up at all. But if you used a curved barbell or a horseshoe, you can easily flip it up. That's what I did when I first got it done, and I flipped it up almost immediately after getting it done. That's why if someone is looking for a piercing that they can easily hide, I always recommend the septum. Body J for you asks, what's your favorite piercing jewelry material to wear? Titanium. All the way. Absolutely love titanium. However, I will also say that I enjoy silicone plugs or tunnels. Now that my ears are healed from being stretched, I absolutely love the lightweight feel of silicone tunnels and plugs, but for everything else, titanium all the way. Lunar Eclipse asks, what body jewelry website do you prefer? So I have an entire video all about the places where I shop. I have a plethora of places that I enjoy going to. There's so many places online. You just kind of have to dig to find the good stuff, because sometimes on these sites you will find cheaper stuff, not always the best for you. So just go to any of those websites and you should find yourself a plethora of good quality items to pick from. Long story short asks, what are your thoughts on navel piercings on men? I think piercings look good on everyone. They should not be designated for one person as opposed to someone else. If you want it, go get it. I think piercings look great on everyone. Zuza asks, how do I decide what ear setup I want and stick with it? I have so many ideas and some of them interfere with each other. I want them all, I just don't have enough ears. I feel that, I feel that. The great thing about piercings is you can have an entire setup planned out and you can get those piercings. And then down the road you could be like, I kind of want to change it up and I don't want such and such piercing and such piercing anymore. You can take them out. Yes, there is going to be a slight scar. You know, you can still see the hole a little bit, but otherwise, you know, that's the great thing about piercings is that if you get tired of one after a while, you can take it out and go for something else. For me, I went into piercings with like no curation in mind. I'm probably not the best person to ask. I just kind of kept going back and forth with ears. So I've never gotten the concept of styling my ears. That being said, go with your gut. That's what I always do. Like, what does your gut say? What is the first piercing that comes to mind when you are trying to decide what to get? What is the very first one? That's gonna be the one you want the most. Andrea asks, when you get the occasional random nosebleed, do you take your nose ring out or leave it in? I haven't had a nosebleed, I was about to say since I got my septum piercing done. I actually had a really bad nosebleed last January, so January 2020. It was gnarly. Whew. I kept all of mine in because otherwise that would have been a huge mess trying to get them all out. I just cleaned myself up. I did use my saline spray. I think I had H2 Ocean at the time, and I got up in there just to make sure that all the gunk was cleaned from around the jewelry. But otherwise, that just sounds really messy to try and take it out during the nosebleed because it's kind of hard to tell when a nosebleed is coming on, and you can't really prepare for that. So yeah, I just left them in. Emily asks, what has been the worst piercing to heal for you? By far, my doth. I have an entire video all about it. It was atrocious. Fine now, but it was absolute hell to heal. Mandan asks, do you have any tips for keeping internally threaded jewelry from coming loose? I have never actually encountered an issue with threadless jewelry coming loose. Usually it's the little gem, like the little part that goes into like the labret is perfectly fit to it, so it shouldn't come loose. Like, it's supposed to have a little bend to it, and then that way when you press it in, it just kind of adheres, so you shouldn't be experiencing it coming loose. That being said, I am known to just every so often go around to my piercings and just kind of give little squeezes to make sure that everything is still fine. Diethra asks, what do you know about dahlia bites? Would you recommend them or not? Why? My biggest holdup with it is the name. I think that is absolutely an atrocious name for it, considering what it's named for. Like, once I did research on that piercing and found out the reason why it's called that, I think it's disgusting that it's called that. There is another name for it. It's called the Joker bites. Not sure that one's much better, but that's what I'd rather call it. I personally wouldn't get them done just because I don't like that placement. That makes me feel like I've got food or crust there all the time. I do think the piercing itself is cute. I personally wouldn't get it, and I also just do not like the name whatsoever. Also, if you don't know why it's called that, I have an entire video all about lip piercings. You can go check it out. I'm just directing you all to a lot of my old videos. Actually, some of them are not that old. Maggie asks, is there a piercing you really want but don't have the anatomy or feel like wouldn't suit you? My belly button. I really want to get it done, but because I have loose skin from losing all the weight, the flesh kind of overhangs and I just feel like the piercing would never heal if I got it done, which makes me sad. I could get a tummy tuck, but that's a lot for a navel piercing. Julia asks, which tattoo of yours is your favorite? I can't pick. I've been asked this before and I honestly cannot pick. I'm inclined to say my newest ones are always my favorite ones, but I also really love my fruit bat. I love his placement. I love how colorful he is. Very hard for me to pick, but if I have to pick one, I'd say my fruit bat. Love Via asks, how does one go about finding a good body piercer? For me, word of mouth as well as extensive online research. I have come across my fair share of bad body piercers, but for the most part, I have come across very good ones based on word of mouth as well as reviews online, as well as just my own knowledge of shops in my area. Amy asks, how was your experience with having a tooth gem? Do you think you'll get it again? Absolutely, and I keep forgetting to make an appointment to get a tooth gem. I miss both of them so much. Lesson learned, don't eat Tootsie Pops or like Starbursts when you have tooth gems because they'll come out. But I would absolutely love to have them again. I loved those things so much. They were so cute. I will say it was a strange feeling to get used to. It kind of felt like braces. For me personally, I only had two, but it felt like braces again because it felt like it was rubbing up against the lip, but then I just got used to it. Miranda asks, how long should I wait in between getting piercings? It really depends on what piercing it is, where it is, the healing time for it. So if you're getting your conch on your left ear and then want to get your tragus on your right ear, I'd wait a good 6 months, just because you're gonna want to be able to sleep on one of those sides, and it's gonna be the side that doesn't have a new piercing on it. So if you get your conch on your left, you wait about 2 months, then you get your tragus done on your right, you're gonna want to sleep on your left because your tragus is the newest one, but your conch is most likely not completely healed yet. So you need to take a lot of factors into it. You know, something like a lip piercing takes a way shorter time to heal than a conch would. So there are a lot of variables in there, and it really just depends. Faye asks, what do you think about scarification, and would you or do you have? I think it looks pretty cool if done correctly. I've seen some really gnarly messed up ones before online, not anyone I personally know. I personally would not get it done just because it's not something that interests me, but I have seen some pretty unique designs before that are really killer. I just wouldn't do it myself. Ellie asks, ultimate piercing pet peeve. I think my ultimate piercing pet peeve is along the lines of when something is clearly not correct to do. So take for example using hydrogen peroxide to heal a piercing. Clearly not the correct thing to do. I think my piercing pet peeve is when someone said, well, I used hydrogen peroxide and mine turned out fine. No, yours turned out fine in spite of you using that. Same thing with piercing guns. Oh, I got my ears pierced with a piercing gun and they're fine. Okay, cool. Same for me. All of my lobes were done with a piercing gun. They turned out fine in spite of that. However, I will say that some of them took, I don't know, 7+ years to finish healing. So I think people saying like, oh, well, I had this and it was fine. You had this and it was fine in spite of what you did wrong. I think it's that grates at me the most. And the last question is from J1407. How long did it take for your navel piercing scar to fade in color? I have a scar too currently. It took a while, but bio oil has been the best thing for scars. I use that for my weight loss surgery scars, and I use that on my navel piercing scar. It has honestly been the best thing. And now, yes, you can still kind of see the raised area of the scar, but it's very hard to see, and unless I point it out, most people don't notice it. So that is it for this month's Body Mod Q&A. Again, if you would like a question answered for April's, go ahead and leave them in the comments below, or wait for me to throw the question up on my Insta stories over on Instagram. Special thank you to my patrons. You can help support the channel on Patreon while having access to videos early, viewing patron-only content, and more. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big ol' thumbs up. Going down there and hit that subscribe button, wherever it may be, because I don't know, even though I do. This is just my shtick now. Also hit that notification bell in case you want to know when I upload, and in case YouTube wants to let you know when I upload, because I would really appreciate it. And until next time, bye guys!